Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a Ko-Fi, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Refracted Curvature, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
All right, let's get it on.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Shout out to Godzilla37 hitting the super chat. It says, Arwen is so much wizard that even Dunning-Kruger is blushing. Oh, please don't insult Arwen in the super chats. Thank you for the support anyway. Really appreciate it. You do a bit of housekeeping? Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
That says it all right there, doesn't it? No, Earth is flat. There are no horizons on a globe. Slope-a-dope.
What's the slope-a-dope, Neil?
That's when Muhammad Ali was against the ropes and let George Foreman throw his punches till he was exhausted, and then he got knocked the F out.
No, that's the rope-a-dope.
Well, that's what a slope-a-dope is.
No, that's a rope-a-dope.
It's taken off. Yeah, but we took it off the rope-a-dope because that's basically what happened. It's an impossibility to have a horizon on a spherical Earth.
Why?
Horizon level.
Why?
Its orientation is horizontal. Horizontal is parallel to the plane of the horizon.
Describe a slope or a slant would be the deviation from the horizontal.
If you can't get that by me saying, hello, horizon, then there's no hope for you.
No, I can't get it from just hello, horizon, Neil. That's insufficient. Woefully.
It's horizontal. How are you going to get, okay, if Earth is a sphere, how are you going to get anything horizontal on a sphere?
I don't know. How would that affect it?
I mean, how would that affect it?
Yeah, on a sphere, what's the problem? Why can't I have a horizon?
Because it's horizontal and a sphere is round. It's spherical.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
You can have it going through it.
Okay, that's all we were
on
fishing
top
for.
of it.
That's all you need. You just need to lay it out, Neil.
Come on. You know I'm
Curve.
freaking driving and doing a million things.
Oh, that's fine. You brought it up.
Yeah, the geometrical horizon only exists in the maths anyway.
And
Yeah, but
spherical
you can't give them
geometry,
maths
you can't
because
have
it
a
doesn't
straight
exist.
line on the surface.
One
In
more time,
spherical
Jeremy.
geometry, you can't have in spherical geometry, you can't have a straight. There's no straight lines on the surface. They're all curved.
Yeah, indeed. There are no straight lines on the surface of a curved anything.
But that's
Well,
slope
that's
thing,
that's
though.
the
You wouldn't believe how many times I've had to explain to somebody when I'm trying to.
But they'll just tell you it's so big it's flat, right?
yeah, but that's the unique thing about a sphere, right? There are no flat surfaces on a sphere.
Right, so you can't have a horizon on a sphere then.
Correct. But they beat themselves up with that. That's why QE named it the slope-a-dope after the rope-a-dope.
And you can't have a horizon on a sphere, and you can't claim a geometrical obstruction without level being a horizontal plane.
You wouldn't believe how many times I got to explain to these guys what slope is. It's like a debate on what slope is half the time when I go to that rise over run. It's weird. It always
Well,
turns
because
into a
they're
debate
holding
when they
on to
don't
a belief,
understand what
though. That's
slope
why,
is.
right? Sorry.
Or they just don't know what slope is. I don't know.
Okay.
Everybody knows what slope is. Come on.
Moving on from slope, right? Did you all just hear what John just said, though, in Discord? You repeat it, John, because we're going to focus on it.
You can't claim a geometrical obstruction without level being horizontal.
So for Earth curve maths, guys, I don't know if any of you have got a diagrammatical example to hand in your server that you can grab or someone can post and you can have a look at it. If not, it doesn't matter. You just have to go by what I say. Inside the Earth curve maths, there's two horizontal lines that are represented and labelled. One says surface level and the other says eye level. And the way that the maths actually works is by way of calculating the differential between those two things after height is included in the equation. So as you raise in elevation, the difference between eye level and surface level can be calculated out to give you a point below surface level. That's a horizontal plane that you can label with an X and call horizon. But in order to extrapolate this point below surface level that they call Earth curve, you require Earth to be a horizontal plane of reference. You require surface level to be level in Earth curve maths. That is to say, in Earth curve maths, Earth is measured flat. You require a surface level that is parallel with eye level for this maths to work. It's right there in the maths. Earth's being measured flat in Earth curve maths. Not a lot of people know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that. What's that on
Brian,
Bislins or the other guy?
All of them.
I just
It's
posted
on
that in
all
the
of them?
chat.
All
I
of
just
them.
posted on the
The
chat.
way
the
the
Earth curve
maths,
calculator.
that's how it functions. That's how the maths operates. It takes reality, surface level, and parallel eye level with it, and calculates the difference between the two to give you a point below surface level called mathematically called Earth curve, marked with an X and labelled horizon, below the surface level. And it's right there in the maths, surface level, eye level. It's part of the mathematical functionality of that derivation called Earth curve. You require Earth to be a horizontal plane of reference, and you require eye level to run parallel with surface level for the maths to function. Earth must be flat for Earth curve maths to work.
that's brilliant.
Yeah, the horizon is at surface level and not below the surface level. No one looks at the horizon below surface level.
So there is no
Only exists in the maths.
Yeah, in orthographic view, there's a below surface level maths only horizon marked with an X. But as George has pointed out, there is no below surface level horizon in reality. We just have a horizon. But what the calculator actually does is gives you a optical resolution loss limit that they place below surface level mathematically. But that optical loss is just the calculation, the differential calculation between eye level and surface level. So where they're calculating out what will disappear, bottom up, that's an optical resolution loss calculator. That's what the actual Earth curve calculator is. And flat Earth optical resolution loss calculation, that's what it actually does. They just call it Earth curve. They were also using the same maths in the, I'm going to say, late 1700s. This was presented to us by 10th Man in a very, very old navigation book where they were showing site reduction tables and how they calculated out their best guess for where the horizon would be at distance. And it's the same maths as Earth curve maths, but described with a flat Earth. The same flat Earth that's called surface level in Earth curve maths. So they've taken an existing mathematics to calculate where your resolution will diminish when looking in the distance and utilizing the horizon for navigation on a flat Earth. The calculation's then been taken and go, we could call this Earth curve. And that's exactly what they've done. They're not even clever. They're not even doing it from scratch. It's not like they've back-engineered Earth curve from flat Earth. They've taken an existing mathematics for optical resolution loss and called it Earth curve. Psychopaths are nothing but good at recycling. That's all they can do. They've got no original ideas. They just steal. So stealing an old, I say 1700s, probably early 1800s. I forget exactly what the date was, and 10th's not around to ask. But I'm sure my panel will back me up that we all had a good look at this and went, whoa, it's just Earth curve maths. Yes, it is.
So what stops a guy like Left Lane from putting this together?
Why do you care?
I don't. I'm just curious.
You're always curious. Why?
I think it.
Go on, John.
I think it might be the authorities that are telling him that the emperor is not naked. He's accepting that instead of just looking at it on his own.
Look, I don't want to decry anyone's beliefs. If they want to believe that the emperor has got invisible clothes on, that is entirely up to them. I don't care whether the emperor's got clothes on or not. I know he hasn't.
Yeah, but sorry, Nathan. That's my point, though. Everybody, I think what it is that they're just going to rely on consensus, and they have it all worked out. Like, look at that guy Flatzoid was, let's not say debate, having a conversation with the other day. He said, it's all laid out. We know Earth is a sphere, and I would need so much evidence to turn my viewpoint around, to something to that effect. Because he's listening to what consensus is saying, what the TV says, what your politicians say, and what the pseudoscientists say.
Even they say that level is a horizontal plane. Only in like one definition is it labeled conforming to the curvature of Earth. And that's immediately contradicted in the same definition.
Right, got 52 people watching.
Let me ask a question.
I'll just do a quick call to action. Please share the show. Very warm welcome to all 52 of you who are watching already. Go ahead.
I was wondering if I could put a question out there, since we have a lot of people listening and there's a lot of people from different groups listening. Shout out to everybody. You know who I'm talking about. Let me ask a question. Is flat an orientation?
Generally, colloquially,
Dude,
yes.
we're on a plane with topography, dude. People are taking shit way too literally.
So we had this discussion a couple of weeks back, Montreal. So if I was to tell you to lie flat, would you go and stand up against a wall? Or would you go and lie on the ground or on a bed? Which would you do if I asked you to lie flat?
Oh, I'd probably lie on my couch or something. Yeah, or on the floor. Yeah.
Right. So colloquially, as a generalism, people use flat as an orientation. If you say flat and it is in context as an orientation, it will mean horizontal. You can add extra context to that word. Put yourself flat up against the wall, but up reorientates that flatness. So if I say, I'm going to push you flat up against the wall, again, you've got a context that I'm not going to lay you down flat. So you have to slightly recontextualize flat if you're going to put it in the vertical orientation. Because typically, colloquially, flat means horizontal if you're going to use it as an orientation. Doesn't always stand true, but 99% of the time it does.
Everybody agrees with Nathan.
That's the thing. The
Brian said that,
contextualization comes within the conversation.
Ryan said that flat was a description and you couldn't measure flat. Couldn't measure a description.
Here we go.
So that's why he won't say the Earth is measured flat, because you can't measure a description.
Yeah, it's strictly accurate.
Yes, he does say Earth is measured flat.
Yeah, it's not a
No, he
geometric
said the
term.
other day he
It's
wouldn't
correct.
say it.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's correct.
He said he wouldn't say it.
Yeah, strictly speaking, it's a slight misspeak. But I don't care.
No, I
How
still
did you
don't agree
measure a
with that.
description?
So it's contextualized within the
how do you measure a
conversation. Hold on, it's
description, then?
contextualized within. Fuck it.
Try again, John. One more
No,
time.
go ahead, John.
It is contextualized within the conversation. It is not always an adjective. Sometimes it's an adverb. Depends on how it's used in a sentence. This is ridiculous. Are we going to pretend like we don't know what flat is now?
Well, that's what
I
Brian
think there's
said.
nothing more powerful. Shut up, Better Bear. I think
need.
there's nothing more powerful than Earth is measured flat.
No need, Neil. No
Neil,
need.
Oh, so we're
remember
gonna
what we
let
were
him
talking
go.
about?
Hold on. If you listen to the show the other day, look how much time this guy used with his same nonsense over and over and over again.
How did you
But
measure
I
a
hear you. It
description?
could be frustrating, bro, but we can't do that. Let's just chill out and, let's go back and forth.
Fine. I'm chilled.
Yeah,
Go
just go
ahead,
ahead and
Bear.
present the measurements of flat.
Horizontal. Horizontal.
Dude, I don't think
the
anyone's
measurement.
saying it's perfectly flat. I don't think anyone's saying it's perfectly flat. We all know there's topography,
No.
but we know that it's
No.
What?
Before you generalise, no, I would say that in
you
navigation
don't know
it's
there's
dealt with as
topography.
perfectly flat within navigation. There is no elevation
The
changes
claim-
whatsoever. It's all
The
dealt
claim
with
and
on the
sorry.
same horizontal plane.
Well, most
the
of us
claim
know
and the
it's a
demand
plane
that
with
it's repeated
topography,
is
so-
that
All right, go ahead.
the claim is that it's measured flat, and it's demanded that people say that it's measured flat. But so far, I haven't seen anybody come up with the measurements of it.
Latitude. I went over it with you personally. I did.
No, you didn't. You told me to shut up. You never go over
What, your
anything with
latitude?
me.
Latitude.
Measurement.
Yeah, that's a measurement.
You said a measurement.
Yeah, measurement with Polaris along the ground. The points on the ground are your latitude lines. That's a measurement.
The ground isn't flat, though.
Right? You don't think that the ground is flat when you take an angle from any position along a base to Polaris at its GP. That's its ground.
Well, we went over that as well.
Sorry, do you want to just remove Edaber? He's just talked through me. I didn't even
There you
take
go.
breath.
There you go. This is
Is he going to
exactly.
now object?
Yeah.
Is he now going to object to the fact that he didn't let me get to the end of that sentence?
Yes,
No, we
I was
got
about
it.
to do that.
We got
yes, I was about
Thanks.
to do that.
Thank you.
Elder Bear, don't interrupt. If you interrupt, I'm going to mute you. You won't be part of the show. We want you to be part of it, but don't interrupt. Please.
I want you to be part of the show, Edaber. But I personally have gone through this with you, a liar, several times, and detailed latitude with you personally. Now, you're saying I haven't. I have. When we measure along the baseline to the ground position of Polaris, that is definitely the ground. The lines that we're going to measure for the angles, that position, system, latitude, is on the ground. It's a ground positioning system.
So would you say the ones below the equator were just calculated out then, or?
We're going to hopefully cover that eventually in Time Bandits. There's massive inaccuracies as you go beyond the equator, and you have to take existing stars and their positions in the ephemeris, or whatever you want to document it in the almanac, beyond a fixed star. So yeah, you can extrapolate out further and further with the system being weaker and weaker, and the lines that they do infer get wrapped around a ball meaning that there's massive distance inaccuracies on a ball, for obvious reasons, in the south. That, up until a certain point in our recent history, recent documented history at least, was a stumbling point for extra exploration. But you have workarounds. But it doesn't alter the fact that one of the very first things I covered when I got here were the inaccuracies in the south. The fact that people, mariners specifically, would go and have massive extensions on their journey when travelling in the south. They didn't match the charts. Therefore, they'd be massively late.
Right, but the angle measurements to those southern stars still require a baseline to the GP position at that moment. Now, whether that conforms to a celestial sphere model is irrelevant. We're talking about the baseline for the measurement, not the model that is inferred afterwards.
Yeah, the measurement itself is just you measuring the
Not
base,
only
which
that.
is flat. I just want to get Ed
Also
a bear,
for the
because he
sun.
didn't think he'd been told. Now you've been told. We measure Earth flat with latitude. The baseline
First day
to
you've
the
spoken.
GP is a flat Earth measurement. Hope we're clear.
However many times you say ground does not mean the ground is flat.
So ground position at GP. What's that for then, Edinburgh?
It's a reference. It's
But
not the
ground position is not the ground.
The sea.
Sorry, I'm
The
asking you a
sea is going
question.
up and down. Did you notice that?
So
When you were
ground
with
position.
your sister on the sextant, you're on the sea going up and down. Obviously not flat, horizontal level. Obviously not. The surface.
So did you ignore what I said earlier? In navigation,
I
it is
see.
dealt with as perfectly flat. There are no elevation changes. You have to account for the fact that there's going to be undulations in the sea as you travel. You'll take your height above sea level at the dock, at the port, for height of eye. That's it. That correction remains the
You
same
imagine.
every... Just remove him. He's just an intolerable man. You deal with that once at port, height of eye. That's it. You make the measurement once. It's the same for absolutely everywhere. Doesn't make any difference. Yeah? That's it. One measurement. That too is a measurement of Earth, Edinburgh. Height of eye above the deck. The deck being the ground. The same ground that we're referring to thousands of miles in the distance when we measure the ground position of GP. That's GP for Polaris. That's what we're measuring. So we've got the ground when we measure height of eye, and we've got the baseline to the ground position at Polaris. Response from Edinburgh, it's not the fricking ground. Yes, it is.
So Nathan, Brian went over this with him. Adam went over this with him. If you listened to the show the other day, it was gone over, and he's going to keep going.
Yeah, go
right?
ahead, Jeremy.
Fine.
These guys think the same thing
Also,
we do.
there's-
It's just some pedantic argument. It's just some pedantic argument. They think levels horizontal, so do we. Plumb lines are parallel. There's just some issue with the ground having topography, which I don't know why anyone would deny that. Obviously, the ground has topography.
Right, I've dealt with this now
Yeah, but
three.
when-
It's like
Well, yeah,
it's like it's
but-
being. It's like it's falling on deaf ears. I've now said this to you guys. This will be the third time in the last 20 minutes. In navigation, no, there are no topology changes. It's dealt with as perfectly flat. Not zero elevation, none. Why do you keep saying, well, there's elevation changes? No, it's dealt with flat. Like the maps. That's how it's treated.
Yeah, but the
Right,
map's
and
not
the elevation
map
changes
is
of
not
topography.
Hold on, you're in a reification fallacy though at this point, because the Earth does have topography, and your map, if your map doesn't, I mean, the Earth still does. The map's not the terrain, right?
That's not how celestial navigation
hold on.
works. So the point below each position that you're measuring, it's, say this again, just in case people maybe deny it and say I haven't told them, the ground positions, yeah? when you measure the ground positions, the elevation's irrelevant. It doesn't matter if you measure that position, that angle, 20,000 feet in the air or on the ground. Because the ground is flat, and it's dealt with as perfectly flat, every line horizontal will be parallel with the ground, and all angles to the stars will match at all elevations. So it matters not what height you are. Doesn't matter if you take the angle in an aeroplane at 40,000 feet on the top of Everest or sat in a rubber dinghy on the sea. They all produce the same angle, and any of those lines, so long as you've established a horizontal line, will be parallel with the ground. Therefore, the ground position, from wherever you measure it, is the same always. Doesn't matter about the height at all. Do you know why? Because of the way the stars behave. They do not change with altitude. Now, that in and of itself absolutely annihilates all notions of heliocentric distances and operations. Entirely. Because at elevation, they should alter. They don't. They stay the same. They match the books. They'll still be above the same ground at the same time. At all heights of measurement. Without exception. So no, Earth is dealt with as a perfectly flat plane in navigation. The topographical changes matter not.
Right.
Yeah, that doesn't
the
even seem
idea
like
that
it
it's
could be
a
depicted
reification,
orthograph.
I'd like to address that.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
That wasn't me.
Oh, whoever it was. Or John, if not.
It's me. And then I want to add that, so if they want to claim that it's taking the measurement from the center of Earth and that the elevation wouldn't matter, but they would still have the problem of the curving path and diverging zeniths. So yeah, it's flat.
It's not the diverging zeniths. You can't have
The
diverging
reason why
zeniths,
this
first of all.
is done is for you to find.
No, I'm talking about the
you as the
argument.
navigator. You as the navigator, you want to find your position, your ground position. You lost at sea. So
I think
in order to
Nathan
do
missed
this
what I was.
triangulation, to pinpoint these ground positions and compare to your ground position to find the distances, so you can find your position on the ground, regardless if you're at sea. So it is ground position.
Yeah, hold on just a second. I just wanted to cut that argument that they are measuring from the center of Earth as a possibility, because the elevation change doesn't affect, if you're on the top of Everest or at the seashore, wouldn't affect the angle measurement, and that's accurate. Now, what I wanted to say was, now if the anti-flat earthers are trying to say that, well, we're using it from the center of the Earth, that wouldn't work, because there's a curving path as they travel the Earth that they would have to take into account, and then we would have diverging zeniths, and you wouldn't be able to navigate
No,
at all.
no,
So
you
I
wouldn't
just wanted
have
to cut
zeniths.
that.
Plus, it gets really,
You
really
wouldn't have an
difficult.
angle, yeah, right.
It gets really hard to drill down to the centre of Earth to take a measurement, though, doesn't it? If you're going to infer that that's what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just wanted to. That was clear to the audience mostly. Hopefully, or to position it correctly for future arguments as well.
Zenith is 90 degrees to the ground. You don't get 90 degrees on a spherical surface. So they don't have zeniths to have them diverge to begin with. Secondly, the idea that a measurement is a reification fallacy is wrong. It is only when you try to conceptualize it within a model that it becomes a reification fallacy. So just
Gotcha. Yeah, because
to make that clear.
this is like a magical idea, right? That the zeniths are the same, like the angles are the same from high above and below. So like that's not something you could depict orthographically. So what do you think the explanation for that is?
I'd love to know. The majesty of the heavens will never have an explanation for this, right? Why they don't change as you go up higher, why the angle remains the same. I am damned if I know.
Yeah,
the only thing we can come to the conclusion is that the stars do not obey our concepts of geometry. That doesn't mean the ground doesn't.
Well, I mean, if it's a non-linear relationship, it does. Be a logarithmic relationship optically.
What does that mean?
It just a curved. There's a curved limit. I mean, I would never say it ultimately defies our geometry. That's not true. So
Okay, if it obeyed our geometry, as you raised in height, you'd get closer to it.
okay.
But it doesn't do that. So it doesn't obey our geometry, WITSIT.
Wait. So you're saying if we go crazy high in the sky, the star will stay the same place?
Do you have no idea how the stars behave, WITSIT? Have you ever actually looked at them?
Please tell me where you made a measurement over 180.
I asked you a question. Based on your question, I'm just going to make a statement of fact. You have no idea how the stars behave, do you, WITSIT?
Yeah, I know.
You just asked
that
me. You just asked me if at height they wouldn't change even a little bit. Do you want to ask me that again? And I'll just declare it again that you haven't got the slightest idea what the stars do. Why do you talk about the stars?
If you want to be retarded and act like it counts for
Answer that question. Answer your own question then. Do they change even a little bit as you go up in height, WITSIT? Answer that for me.
We wouldn't know because you'd have
yeah,
to
we
go
do
to
know.
Extreme height.
Yeah, we do know, WITSIT. You don't know. Why do you?
Well, you don't know.
Let's just stop talking a second, please, WITSIT. Do you mind, WITSIT? I'm trying to respond. Why is WITSIT now chanting through me? Can you stop WITSIT from chanting through me?
Let's not turn this into
Excuse
a
me,
show.
I was in the middle of something. WITSIT's decided that because he's being corrected, he's going to chant through me. Can you stop him from doing that, please?
That's not what happened. You interrupted me. You interrupted me 3 times.
Right, WITSIT doesn't know what the stars do. He's asked a question. Now it seems I'm being perpetually chanted through. I'm going to just state a fact. WITSIT doesn't know how the stars work. He's asked a question about whether or not they'll change at altitude. That tells me unequivocally he doesn't know how they work.
Well, do you have like a measurement of like a boat?
I'm talking to WITSIT. Talking to WITSIT. Talking to
WITSIT. And longitude, and then like a a helicopter above it or a balloon right above it, and measures the same star angle.
Sorry, I was talking to WITSIT.
Excuse me. As he's running the show, it's a show that he's throwing here. So please refrain. He said he was talking to WITSIT. Please do not continue, Torah.
WITSIT.
Okay, so
based on
I'm
your
not
question,
talking about minor.
that means not. That means I was talking to you. That's not your invitation to start taking control of the conversation. WITSIT. It's the second time he's done it, Mods. Second time he's done it. Second time he's done it. He understands that I'm about to start telling him something, so he starts jabbering first. No, WITSIT. No, I'm the one telling you something, and he's not going to stop. So this tactic's never going to end, is it? This tactic's never going to end. I'm never going to get my chance. Now Raki is doing it. Everybody's white knighting. Can you take control? What's going on? I'll try again.
You asked me a question. Someone else.
No, I haven't asked anything. I'm going to tell you something when you finally stop waffling because you know something's coming your way. I'm telling you, you don't have any justification to be talking about what the stars do based on that question you've asked me. To ask that question tells me in no uncertain terms that you, WITSIT, do not know how the stars behave. That's a fact. Answer your own question.
Through me.
Answer your own question.
Because I interrupted him right then. Yeah. This dude is such a joke. Somehow he comes in this server and then calls me all kinds of names, and then I go to respond and I get server muted 3 times. Since when did that happen?
I don't know. Let's just all go one at a time, please, guys.
Okay. I'm not talking about minor elevation changes. The stars are very far away. If you weren't retarded, you would know that. I'm talking about immense distant changes. You wouldn't know if they change or not unless you have evidence of a measurement super high in the sky, which you don't. So claiming that they don't obey geometry is a stupid claim. Thank you.
Sorry, they don't obey our geometry because when we raise in elevation, they stay at the same angle measurement. Now, if they obeyed our geometry, like a lighthouse, if I'm standing next to a lighthouse and I measure the angle up to it and I'm having to crick my neck to look up it, and it's a 80-foot lighthouse, yeah? If I raise up 80 foot, guess what? It's no longer an angle measurement. I'm straight parallel with it, aren't I? Because I've raised up and it obeys how we interpret things to be measurable with angles when we have a relationship with them with height. As you go up, the angle decreases. You raise in elevation with respect to the lighthouse, the angle you measure decreases. The stars do not do that, WITSIT.
Hey, does the amount that the angle changes vary with distance? Yes or no?
For the stars?
Yes or no?
For the stars?
You can't answer yes or no.
Sorry,
Do anything.
For the stars?
Do anything.
Right, and we're talking about the stars and how they do not obey those rules. You don't know that. Now you're laughing.
Hey,
so far, he's called me retarded, and now he's laughing through the top of my sentences.
Yeah, you called me retarded.
Could you please
first.
mute him while I try and talk? Because
Guys,
he's now
let's not
jabbering
do
through the
any of
top
that,
of me
please.
and insulting me and calling me retarded. I don't
You
like
called me
it.
retarded first.
Can you please stop
Okay,
him from
but let's
doing this?
not-
I'm trying to reply, and he just won't shut
Yeah,
up.
I can't believe
Please, can you
this
shut him up?
Please, guys, let's not call names. No name calling.
Yeah, I'd rather not be called retarded. I'd just like to respond to him without him laughing
called
at me
me
or calling
retarded
me
first.
names, and now he won't shut up.
Whoever
called
did
me a
it
name
first.
first.
Yeah, he's
You
still
called
doing
me
it.
retarded
Still not getting my
first.
chance to say anything. It's just an endless barrage monologue from WITSIT, and he's laughing and calling me names. I am
Projection.
not retarded. Is he ever... Can someone server mute him so I can actually get a chance without WITSIT rumpusing me
I'll leave the
continuously?
server if I think Nathan Oakley gets to like run me here.
I'm never going to get a chance to talk,
Bro, he's
obviously.
doing a
WITSIT's
show-
not going to allow it, so I'm just going to remove
He
myself from
said
this
my
server.
name, Jeremy.
Okay.
Give me a second, Nathan. WITSIT, he's running a show. Same thing as host.
I don't care.
Well, goodbye.
Oh, so when he runs a show, you give him full respect, but he don't want to give the
Yeah,
same
no,
respect.
he's server muted.
Okay.
He is server
Okay,
muted
thank
right
you.
now. Please
Yeah,
stop.
yeah, thank you.
Continue.
I want to speak to the audience. Why are any of you listening to WITSIT's garbage about the stars? Ether being the stars and their contained area. He doesn't even know how they behave by his own vision. He hasn't even looked at them. He doesn't know what they do. He hasn't got the slightest idea. To tell me that I would be retarded to assert that they don't obey our geometry. They don't. So what does that make WITSIT, given he's told me I would be retarded to suggest that they don't obey our geometry? They absolutely do not obey our geometry, and WITSIT did not know that. Yet he's peddling an entire faith in ether. He's never even looked at them, has he? This is a bit of a revelation. This is a bit embarrassing. Is this WITSIT jabbering through me again? While I point out to this audience and this server, the WITSIT, the man who jabbers on with long, incessant words that he doesn't probably know the meaning of, about the sky and the stars, has never even observed what they do with his own two eyes, and has got the gall to call me retarded for suggesting that they don't obey our geometry, when they don't. So no, WITSIT, how dare you call me retarded? I would suggest that a man that doesn't even know how the stars behave based on his own bloody vision of them shouldn't be going around telling people about ether. It's a disgrace. Before you start peddling this garbage that you cannot prove, I suggest that you actually learn what the stars do with your own eyes first. Like I've done. Like everybody on my panel's done. But you've got the nerve to call me retarded for knowing what they do. This is an absolute disgrace.
Is there a point here?
Earth
Can
is
I-
not flat. Earth is not flat.
Can I ask a question?
Of who?
No, wait.
Why?
Just because he's running a show doesn't mean he can say my name and talk crazy about me. And then when I go to respond, he gets to scream over me, and then I get muted. Some moderator enlighten me how he can say my name and talk about me. Then I go to respond and don't get to because he's running a show. Someone enlighten me.
Because you're
Enlighten me,
responding through
please.
him. Let him finish.
All right, this is.
Oh,
Go ahead.
No one's
Let's
gonna.
all-
No one's gonna respond.
Yes,
Oh.
let's all keep it, please, guys. Let's not turn this into a mess, and we all go one at a time. None of the insults and name calling and personal attacks, please. Just this is your chance. Respond to his point.
Well, yeah, let's
So,
rewind for a second. I very calmly said I wouldn't say that. It could be a different type of relationship based on vision. That's a fact. I then asked him a simple question he couldn't answer, which is, does the amount the angle changes vary with distance? The answer is yes. If something's further away, the rate at which the angle changes is different than if something's closer to you. This is like 5th grade stuff.
Okay, no
if
worries.
something's closer to me
I heard the
and
first
I
time.
increase my elevation, my angle to it changes faster, right?
That's twice. I heard the first time, the second time. Okay, can you give me an exact measured distance to a star to back that, please? Go.
No, I'm talking about a basic principle of how vision works. If something's closer to me, does the angle that I measure to it change at a different rate based on its distance?
I don't know. Let's have it with a star's distance and we'll find out, WITSIT.
No, we can do it with the lighthouse you brought up. If the lighthouse is closer to me and then I go up higher, is my angle to the lighthouse that I measure going to change faster or slower than when the lighthouse is further away, Oakley?
All right, we're talking about the stars,
you
WITSIT.
lost. You're smart enough to know that you lost. Okay, the point is that
We don't have a measured distance to the stars, WITSIT. We don't have a measure. It's just ignoring me.
I have no idea how far the stars are, Oakley.
So how can you make that assertion about how they behave when they do not change with altitude?
Okay, listen carefully. I said you can't make the claim that you know they wouldn't ever change at
yes,
high
I can,
altitudes.
and I do. It's a fact. Wow.
It's not
wow.
a fact.
So based on your ignorance, no, I'm not going to let you babble on about unicorns any further. You don't know how the stars behave. Stop talking about them.
He just got wrecked. Anyone in this room that acts like he didn't just get wrecked is lying so hard, coping so hard. So the stars are super far away. We don't know what rate that the angle to them
Give me a
would change.
distance.
So we wouldn't.
Give me a distance.
We wouldn't know. Far away.
What's that in meters?
I don't claim a distance.
So far away. So you don't claim a distance. You've just said they're far away, you double-speaking clown.
They literally would obey our understanding of geometry if they're super far away. We wouldn't expect
so
them to
you don't know how far, you don't claim a distance, but now they're super far away, therefore obeying our geometry.
How can you make a claim of exclusivity of geometry if you don't have a distance? How can
because
you say
they
don't obey geometry if you don't have a distance?
Sorry, do you need to repeat? Do you need to keep asking the same question? And then hopefully if you keep saying it again and again and keep talking, I won't get to answer. Please can the moderators shut him up while I answer him?
Repeat my question.
You asked about measuring them based on distance and the distance being far. I pointed out, you totally ignored it, that you don't know the distance. Furthermore, they do not alter in angle as you raise in height.
Okay. How can you make a claim of exclusivity of whether or not it obeys laws of geometry if you don't know the actual distance to them? Answer the question.
Because they don't obey the rules. They don't change in angle as you raise in elevation. The guy's thick. I don't know what else to say. I've said it 4 times.
Wait. How would you know what rate they need to raise
because I've looked at them, WITSIT, unlike you.
How would you know the rate that they need to raise?
They don't change. There's no rate. They're not changing. What part of this aren't you? Why does anybody give any credence to what WITSIT says about the sky after this discussion? Any credibility? I have no idea. He literally doesn't know how they behave to his own vision. That tells me he's never even looked at them.
Okay, you made the claim that they don't obey the laws of geometry.
No, they don't. They don't, because I've looked at them.
In order to make that claim, you would
It's
need
not
to
a
know
claim,
the
it's a
distance of
fact.
them.
It's not a claim, it's a fact.
It can only be considered a fact based on how high you've gone, which is definitely not
No,
hundreds of
it's
thousands
an
of feet.
entire principle of navigation, you stupid man.
Guys, please, man, come on.
It's a principle
so
of
simple,
navigation. I'm going to respond to him, hopefully without him chanting the same sodding thing through me. No, WITSIT, it's not a claim, it's a principle of navigation. The fact that you have parallels to the GP, because they are the same angle at all elevations, is a principle used to navigate. You're telling me like it's a claim. No, WITSIT, you just don't know how the stars behave, son. And it's very telling and kind of pathetic.
No, I know that at the surface, with minor elevation changes, we treat them as if it's the same, and there's no noticeable difference. That's expected
Is that
when
how
the
things?
stars are.
Sorry, and that's how things behave
expected.
normally. Is that how
That's
things normally
expected.
behave? Is that how a lighthouse
Cut
would
my
behave?
conclusion off. You'll be right somehow. So
Yeah,
that's
sorry. When you're
expected
done,
if the
just let me
stars
know.
are super.
Everyone else,
I
can you
will.
mute
Don't
your
worry,
mics
I
because I
will.
can hear scratchy, horrible background noises. If you're not talking, please
That
mute.
is
Somebody was
expected.
hot mic and I got him.
Yeah, thank
If
you,
the
WITSIT.
stars are super far away, it is expected.
I heard that
we
4
wouldn't-
times.
Okay, so then you
Yeah,
can't.
I'd just
make the
like to
claim-
respond instead of the same diatribe and repetition
I
16
can't. I mean,
times.
it's just insane. Like he's scared is what's happening.
Does he ever shut up? WITSIT,
You forced me to,
when
so
you
go
raise
ahead.
in altitude, yeah, to the stars, do they behave the same as the lighthouse, like we would expect in conventional geometry? Is that what the
We
stars
wouldn't
do?
expect that. The lighthouse is way closer.
And we know the
You're getting
distance of the
destroyed.
star. He's just scared, ladies and gentlemen. He just needs to keep his mic open indefinitely while he's getting this absolute pummeling and being exposed as not knowing how the stars work. It's plainly
talk.
obvious to everybody listening as he incessantly and continually interrupts me that he doesn't understand that when we raise in altitude with an object that we know how high it is, we can see a change in angle. With the stars, where we don't know how high they are, they don't change in angle. That does not obey conventional geometry. And that principle is set in stone for navigation. WITSIT started this discussion by telling me that it was, quote, retarded to assert that they don't obey our standard geometry, end quote, WITSIT. No, WITSIT, they do not obey standard geometry. You've obviously never even looked at them.
Okay, so
I can
it is
see what
just a
he's-
fact. It's just
Go
a
ahead,
fact that the rate at which they would change with elevation is relative
They
to the distance away.
don't! Why do you keep telling
my
the
God.
rate of change that they would change? They don't.
So let me try. All right, but Oakley, real quick. Say you have something like a helicopter and it's 100,000 feet in the air, just hovering there, and you make an angle to it, right? And then let's say you move up a millimeter. Like, would your angle change to that? Is that kind of the thing you're getting at? What's it?
No, I don't
Yeah, it would
do
be
that.
no
It's not a
measurable,
principle I'm
noticeable
using.
difference.
No, I don't do that. No. But in celestial navigation, you can take an angle to a star from any altitude and it will be the same regardless. So in terms
Answer
of
this
what your
question.
example plays out with a helicopter, I honestly can't think of any practical application or use in the real world for that. Meanwhile, the fact that the stars do not obey standard geometry, and it is definitely, unlike what WITSIT charged me with, not retarded to state that as fact when an entire navigation principle is based on it, just tells me that WITSIT doesn't know how the stars behave. That's all it really tells me. That this clown who goes around talking about ether doesn't ever actually look at the stars with his own bloody eyes.
Personal attack. Another personal attack. How many does it take to have the show moved? Is
Right.
this the show you want here?
Oh, listen
Mods?
to the white knight right here. Go get him, David.
No, I just don't like the personal
Go get
attacks.
him.
Yeah. Yeah. Why personal attacking and complain about being personally attacked?
So let me get it straight. Did Rakia? Sorry, just for a second, Rakia. Sorry, I didn't hear you objecting when he called me retarded.
I tried to get in and got muted, Nathan.
Yeah, guys, please. Just moving forward. Let's just all do this civilly. No personal attacks. Let's try not to, no insults or any of that. Please, guys, come on.
Just out of interest. No. Let's just assess. No. It's been brought up and put on the table. I don't mind addressing it. Let's just assess it so we can get it all out of the way and it won't happen again. We'll go through both. I'm only reasonable. We'll start with WITSIT. WITSIT said it's retarded to assert that stars don't obey standard geometry. Now, let's just assess that, first of all, as a statement. It's wrong, because it's correct, as opposed to retarded to assert that the stars do not obey standard geometry. They don't. So, WITSIT was wrong, his insult was uncalled for and unnecessary and factually incorrect. Now,
You insulted me
just
for
assess.
basis
Oakley, do you hear where I'm
fallacy.
coming from? Hold on, let's not rewind that whole thing. Let's just move forward. Do you hear
Should
what
we
I'm
just
saying,
focus
Oakley,
on
with-
me calling him a clown for going around telling people how the stars are and telling them about how the world is based on the stars and ether fields when he's never observed them with his own eyes? That to me is the ramblings of a clown, because only clowns would start telling people how the stars are when they've never even looked at them and don't know how they behave. That's
Oakley, that's
very
not gonna help.
clown-like.
Seriously.
Yeah, but I challenged you
Oakley,
to a
that's not
debate
gonna
on
help at all,
Ether, and
man.
you
Come
asked
on.
me how much would I pay you to do it because you were so scared. So stop bringing
Guys,
that up.
this isn't.
Right, you
This
don't know how
isn't
the
gonna help.
stars
Let's just
behave.
move
You
forward
don't.
with
You
the
don't know how the
topic.
stars
Can we
behave,
just
Witsit. I
stick
don't need
to the
any help.
points, guys,
I don't need
please?
any help. You don't know how the stars behave, Witsit. You had to ask me, and then told me I was retarded for asserting that they don't obey standard geometry. They don't. It's not retarded, Witsit. That's what you levelled at me.
Well, I was
Debate on
actually I was
Ether.
operating in good
What's
faith.
Ether?
Let me respond. So I was operating in good faith, and you cut me off before I asked my question. And this is the 5th time you said I had to ask you because I didn't know. But the question I was asking that you cut off was, I don't know. Do you have some type of evidence I have never seen where people are making precise angle measurements to stars at extremely high altitudes? Because
Yes.
I'm quite positive that doesn't exist. So
Oh, really?
cite it.
Would you like me to answer you? Did you know that they carry sextants on aeroplanes, Witsit?
That's not extremely high altitudes.
Oh, really?
Really?
Oh, sorry.
The astronauts
Guys,
claim that they use
Let me
them.
just run through my
Sorry,
scenario.
so,
real
yeah,
quick.
yeah. Even the
you're on the ground.
Hold on, Witsit. You've been top trumped. Even the astronauts claim to be carrying sextants with them. They get as high as is claimed to get that you could get.
Did you just invoke astronauts? Did this
You
just
said not
happen?
high enough. Do you want to trump that? How high do you need it to be? You can use them, Witsit. I'm still talking. You can use them, Witsit. This is going to be the 7th time I've told him. At any altitude. Any altitude, it never changes. You don't need a different almanac if you're 50,000 feet or 100,000 feet. It's the same almanac, mate. Because the stars, you can still measure the same angle from them. Doesn't matter how high you are. You see, that's weird because you said it would be retarded to say that they don't obey standard geometry. They don't, mate. You can measure the same angle from all altitudes. It's not retarded. I would say that for someone to not know that and to claim it's retarded, and that be the same person that goes around telling people about the sky as an ether, that to me is preposterous. Like, if I was a follower of somebody that was telling me what the sky was and what the ether was, and they were held to task by someone who they just claimed was a retard for making a factually accurate statement about how the stars behave, I would question my faith in you strongly, Witsit, if I was one of your followers. Just saying.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll let the people decide like we did last time. So
they will.
Obviously, and they did last time. So it'll be the same thing, by the way. So what I actually said was retarded, was to not acknowledge the fact that there's a relationship with change, the rate at which the angle changes in distance. I did not call you retarded till you called me retarded 3 times. When I first jumped in, I very calmly said, I don't think that I would say we know it doesn't obey laws of geometry. And I'm talking about, for one, the claimed linear relationship, right? The one degree per however many miles or whatever, that can actually be explained by vision. And then the lack of it changing at significantly noticeable rates could simply be explained by the stars being super far away. Okay, you would have to go very, very high to see any noticeable change if the stars are super far away. I gave you a very simple concept that can't be disputed. Lighthouse close, lighthouse far away. The rate of change to the angle changes based on distance. And you started denying that. And I said, that's retarded.
No, I didn't deny it. That was my example, Witsit.
No, it wasn't.
May I point
used
out
the
that
lighthouse,
it
and then
doesn't matter.
I asked 4 times.
Retarded right now.
I asked 4 times, do we all agree that there's a relationship between the rate at which the angle to something in the distance changes relative to its distance? And the answer is obviously yes.
Okay, so you all said the 1 degree of whatever an hour or whatever. What was that exactly? You spoke quite quickly. Do you want to just give me a bit more meat on the bones of that particular? What was it? 1 degree of what now? What were you talking about?
I said the whole 1 degree per 60 nautical miles claim. I never said the word hour. I never didn't know what it was. Like the claimed linear relationship on the globe of 1 degree per 60 nautical miles.
How's that used?
What do you mean, how's it used? They assume that the Earth is curving. We see a declination of the stars. They claim the stars are infinitely far away. They claim they're all at the same distance and that they optically drop because the surface of the Earth is curving.
No.
It could obviously
No.
be a product of how we see the stars.
That's not how it's used.
All right, you want to bet $5,000?
Right, you think 1 degree, that's a flat Earth measurement for a start, for every 60 nautical miles. I want to know how that's applied somewhere in maths, how it's useful.
I just told you
how.
how.
I haven't finished, WITSIT. How it's useful and practically applied, you start talking about sphere distances. That's wrong. Yeah? So we're testing your acumen. You seem to be speaking very quickly about 1 degree for 69 miles. How is that actually put into practical use? Where's it used? Put it into an equation that's actually used in practical life. Go.
I just explained it.
Explain it again, slower.
The stars drop at a certain rate in relation to distance. It's actually not entirely accurate. It varies slightly. They claim that if there's a 1-to-1 linear relationship because there's a celestial sphere of infinite stars around a presupposed globe, they say the linear relationship proves the Earth's a globe. That's what you guys have ignored for 5 years while only talking about the same argument for 5 years.
It doesn't seem to be listening to me. How is this practically applied in the real world? Not to make a fantasy sphere. How do we use it in the real world, WITSIT? This is the stars and their uses. And so far,
I just explained it.
You haven't, WITSIT. Otherwise, I wouldn't be asking the question again now, would I? I know the answer, and you hear my panel itching to give the answer. All of they know too. You brought up...
Me, please.
1 degree for every 60 nautical miles. That's what you've given. That's a nice little bit of jargon. Now tell us where it's actually, practically, usefully applied in the real world. Not to invent a sphere religion, which is what you've tried 3 times. Do you know how it's going to be practically used?
When you're going a certain distance, to estimate your distance based on the change in the position of the stars.
You don't estimate it. Why are you saying estimate? We're making measurements with this stuff, WITSIT.
We don't make constant measurements in real life, actually. We make a measure. No, we don't.
WITSIT, we do.
You want to bet $5,000 on that? You want to bet $5,000 on that?
It's called celestial navigation, my friend. We're making angle measurements.
Do you want to bet $5,000 on it?
Yeah, it's called celestial navigation, mate. We're definitely making measurements.
Periodic measurements.
Does he need to chant through every single time I point out how wrong he is? Can you shut up, boy? No, we make measurements, boy. You're wrong, boy. Now shut up, boy. You don't know how this is practically applied, do you?
This is the show you on here, huh, Jeremy? You approve this, huh?
Don't approve it. Nope, none of it.
Well, that's not going to work, bro. That's not going to work. Don't do that again, Nathan. Don't do that again, Nathan.
What? Tell him to shut up while he's belligerent and talking through me every time I correct him.
Yes, tell him boy and don't talk like that. Yes.
No, boy. That's what's disrespectful, boy. That. Man.
Oh, look who's back. Stacy, the biggest disrespecter.
Okay, well, no worries. I'll just make my conclusions. I'll make my conclusions. No worries.
How many days,
the snowflakes are done having their little moment.
Show that we don't have all this. We invite Nathan to have a show here.
Hey, Nathan,
Meanwhile, while we get further and further away from the point, and Neil makes it more and more distant also.
Nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah, I'm trying to make a conclusion. Trying to make a conclusion. In which it doesn't know what or how this will be practically applied. He's made 3 attempts of turning it into a sphere for some reason. That's not a practical application in the real world.
That's not what I said. I said to determine distance based on how far the stars drop when you travel on the Earth.
How'd you do it?
You just measure the angle to the star as you travel on the Earth.
Then what?
Then you equate it to a distance based on a relationship between the two, which of course in fairy tale globeland, they assume is a linear relationship.
No, in the real world. No, you keep trying to take this to a globe. No, none of us are trying to get back on the globe. Can you stop doing that? How do you do that? How do you get the distance with the angle? WITSIT?
As it drops 1 degree, It's 60 nautical miles. It's very simple. You make a measurement angle.
No, you're not measuring
make an
it
angle
drop.
measurement.
So, no. You're not measuring it drop, WITSIT. You're just measuring its position and angle and taking the time when you do it. Do you not know how this is done then? You're not measuring
That's
it dropped.
literally what I
I just
pointed
try and
out
repeat
was
myself.
that-
It's just every single time. I mean, maybe if I say, can you stop
This is
doing
why,
that?
like maybe 30
Yeah, I'm
people
still
watched, bro.
talking. He's still trying to segue. No, WITSIT. I'm trying to get you to detail how it's practically applied. But you haven't done it yet.
Yes, I have actually.
No, you have not.
So I pointed out earlier that obviously we make periodic measurements, and then based on the amount of degrees that a certain star has changed, we then can get a distance. You then said, no, we're constantly making it. I offered you a $5,000 bet. You got really quiet. Obviously, it's periodic. Now you're trying to point out to me that it's periodic, and you have to write the time down because then you go make a periodic measurement, compare the time, compare the angle, and then say, okay, so how far we've gone. You're not in any way refuting anything I've said. This is just some weird little game you're playing. And what's the point of it, actually?
WITSIT. Nobody's watching a star dropping towards the horizon at 1 degree for every 60 nautical miles. That is not how this function is done. You don't know how it's done. Do you?
Neither do you. Well, okay. First of all, you absolutely can do it that way. And do you want to place a bet?
give me
that I
a distance to a
decided-
GP with that method. Based on your description of watching a star drop to the horizon at a rate of 1 degree for every 60 nautical miles, tell me how you find your position on a map with that. Go.
Whoa, notice how he moved the goalpost to finding my position and knowing the distance to ground position. Now, of course, that wasn't what I said. I said to know how long of a distance you've traveled. So that was pretty nice little sleight of hand. I guess it might work with other people, but not
Okay, give us that then. Okay, give us that then. Give us that. Give us a distance travelled based on an angle to star dropping towards the horizon. How are you going to extrapolate out a distance with that? Go ahead, give us the maths.
I've said it 3 times. So if the star is measured to be displaced a degree, then it is interpreted as a certain distance, specifically 60 nautical miles. If you have some profound evidence that all of the almanacs and all of the literature is wrong, please enlighten me. Okay, I'm not going to keep repeating it though.
And we will practically use that how? That was my initial question. How's this practically applied? So tell me how you'll now practically apply that information.
Well, I said how you could
If he's in a
practically
fixed
apply
position,
it.
the star is still going to
No,
go
don't
away.
give him any help. Let him dig his own hole. He clearly doesn't know how this is done. It's obvious to
Well,
me.
I know
He
how it's-
knows
I
he's
know how-
he knows he's drowning. He knows he doesn't
No,
know how to
I-
explain it. He doesn't know how to explain how to put this into practical application. He keeps telling me he's already done it and telling me he's bet me $5,000.
Yeah, and you didn't take it.
Yeah, but he's away from the original claim.
You want to take
the
it now?
angle to the angle to the zenith line wouldn't change with altitude, because the zenith line is a vertical line, regardless if you are at surface level or on the top of a mountain or on an airplane. Your baseline to the zenith line, it's a 90-degree angle.
Okay, when
That's
did
a
I
flat
say
Earth
the zenith
measurement.
changed with altitude?
You're not talking about celestial
I didn't hear the
navigation,
end
you're
of
talking about
George's
something
statement.
else,
I'm
man.
sorry. WITSIT was doing to him what he was doing to me. Sorry, George. I didn't get to hear that. WITSIT got triggered in the middle of it and decided to chant through you.
He's a straw man. Anyway.
Well, I'll say it again. A zenith line from the star to the GP ground position, that zenith line is a vertical line. You need to have a horizontal line meeting that vertical line at 90 degrees, regardless if you're on the surface of the earth or on the top of a mountain or even further up on a airplane or whatever. You need to have a horizontal line meeting that zenith line at 90 degrees.
Yeah.
It's not changing.
Yes.
You said it was
So
receding.
it's defying the geometry.
So WITSIT, you told us receding towards horizon at a rate comparable to miles in degree. No. What George has just explained to you in terms of what we actually do is we measure a position below it 90 degrees to your position. That's what we're actually doing. Nothing's moving towards the horizon at a rate here, WITSIT. Quite the contrary. Not at all. In fact, we need to know. There's him chanting through me again when I hadn't finished my statement.
Yes, you did, WITSIT. It's all
You gonna bet
recorded.
$5,000?
Maybe if you
Well,
turn it
listen,
into a
Why
bet,
are you guys picking my bet then?
maybe a bit of overconfidence will make the audience think that you're really winning here. No,
No,
Witsit,
you were
we're
just taking bets.
exposing you, Witsit. You don't know how the stars work. You don't know what they're used for, how to practically apply them. You don't know anything about them. It's obvious.
You're just chanting.
So I just think that we're talking past each other. First, not we, because
Well,
I
who's
haven't
doing that,
spoken
Eli?
really.
Because I'm clearly
Well,
not
why
doing
you have
that.
to? You don't have to interrupt me, bro. I'm listening to the conversation. I waited for a chance to speak. I'm not saying that. Look, all I'm saying is, I think you're talking past each other. You were clearly talking about the 60 nautical miles per degree. So you're talking about the position change with respect to the horizon. Now, you did just say that's not what I'm talking about, but you did say that. And George and Nathan, from when I first came in, were trying to talk about how there's no change in the angle to the star the higher up you go. And you keep talking about 60 nautical miles per degree, which would have to do with the change in relation to your distance towards the equator. So I feel
That's
like
what I
y'all are
said.
talking about two different things. I know, but he's saying, okay, so how is that practically applied then versus what he's saying?
I hear you, but right, but that's okay. So I never said that when you change altitude, your zenith's going to change. That's ridiculous, right? If I don't think I did, but if I said drops towards the horizon, then I misspoke because obviously if you're traveling towards it, the star's going to come towards you. I don't think I said that, but I might have said it in
Yeah,
relation
no,
to the
I didn't.
horizon. If I
I'm not
said it, I'm
saying you said that. I'm not saying you said that. You guys are saying two different things, so you're responding to two different things. And I'm pointing. It's not like you misspoke in saying what you just said. I'm just saying you're talking about one thing. He's talking about another thing. So let's just try to get it on to like pick what you guys are actually talking about. You could say, look, bro, I don't know where you're going. How about you tell me how it's practically used? That's also a
well,
possibility for us to have like an amicable conversation versus this weird. I mean, I hate this shit.
Yeah, but let's just like if anyone rewinds it and they hear me jump in, they're gonna hear me be super soft spoken and just say, I don't know that I would.
Jesus God, I can't
I don't know.
handle this, man.
You
Well,
can't
yeah,
handle
but we
truth.
trying to keep it on topic. Let's just forget about.
I'm
Fine, let's get it.
literally
Okay, I'll
trying
get
to
back on
recap
topic.
what I
No
said.
worries.
Let's
Okay, no
unmute
worries, no
him.
worries. This is a flat Earth proof, right? We're talking about measuring along the base to the position below a star, and that's GP, so we can save our lives if we're lost. Now, in terms of practical application of these stars, when we measure the stars, somebody's off mute. Gary Wabenga. Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, because I'm making my conclusion. We use the Earth as a flat plane so that we can have ground positions on that plane be useful to find our position with the stars. The way it's done is you measure your angle to a star, and then you minus that angle from 90 and times it by 60. That will give you the distance in nautical miles to the GP, so that on a map you can draw a circle with that radial value. Now, if you do that twice, or potentially if you're still in the middle of the ocean and have got nothing else to give you your fix, 3 times, you can find your exact location. But the way to do it is to measure the angle to the star and mark the exact time. That's why seafarers carry a chronometer. That's why it was so critically important that they matched the time of day at port with a port-based time system. So we have a system at Greenwich where they drop a great big bell that you can watch. It's like a giant globe-shaped sphere that they drop from a bell tower that takes 60 seconds to drop, so that from the sea you can watch it and time the exact moment that it reaches the bottom to synchronize your clock, so that when you take the angle and say mark and write down the exact time, you can look up the time in the almanac that star that you've just measured is above. So you know the exact position above the ground where that star is. Now that angle, measured at port or measured out at sea or measured in an aeroplane or measured in a hot air balloon, is the same measurement at all elevations. This is the main point of the discussion. It doesn't change as you raise up in height. If you were in a helicopter, for the sake of argument, and the helicopter could fly this high, and it was 50,000 feet above you, that is to say, the helicopter is at your zenith. There's more somebody hot micing right in the middle of my bloody example. The helicopter's directly above your zenith position, so you're below the helicopter on the ground, holding a sextant, and the helicopter is above you, 50,000 feet in the air, with a sextant, and you both measure the same star. You will both get the same angle measurement.
Of course. So I did not, nor do I, disagree with any of that. Okay.
Why the hell would
ridiculous. Exactly. So why are you saying it as if it's a rebuttal to me? I simply jumped in.
Well, is that rhetorical, or do I get to answer? Because when I asserted that the stars... 3 words. Because when I asserted... Second attempt. When I attempted to tell you for the 3rd time that the stars do not obey our geometry, you told me about linear relationships. You told me about... What was the other one you said? Something about their physicality. That if we knew their distance, it would not be unreasonable to assert that they would change in angle. That's what you said. They don't change in angle. And the fact that they don't change in angle, in spite of your protestations and retardation suggestions that if we knew distance, which we don't, I already covered it, then it would be reasonable to suggest that they would change in angle. No, an entire navigation principle is based on the fact that they don't, WITSIT. That's why I'm having to go through it, because you bloody challenged it.
Okay, so what I actually said was we wouldn't be able to make any claims of exclusivity about the fact that they defy geometry, okay? And I brought up one point, which I thought this is what flat earthers typically run from, including your entire panel, which is the whole relationship with degrees and distance. Even that, being a supposed linear relationship, is in no way a threat to flat earth. That was my point. That's a geometry thing. And then when it comes to them not changing at smaller elevations, cool, they're really far away. I mean, even if they're not millions of light years away, they could just be 1,000 miles away. That's pretty far away. I don't know how far away they are. None of us do. Not the point. The point is that we don't know. We don't know how far away they are. We cannot claim to know that they defy geometry.
Yeah, I can.
Right? Which is just like he said.
Keeps doing it.
Like he said.
Just keeps doing it.
Holy shit, that's the point!
Stop swearing, Neil.
But hold on.
No, you've just done... Hello. It's okay. I'm the one who's taking him through it. Yeah.
Yeah, but he wasn't done. You need to wait to finish.
Done defying me for the 7th time.
Contention. It was a very calm, input to the conversation, which was intended to be fruitful and productive, which is we don't really know what the stars are, how far away they are. We don't know what happens when you get really, really high. We don't really know. All we have is limited data based on measurements relatively close to the ground in the grand scheme of things, and they don't appear to change to any noticeable degree when we change in altitude. That's cool, but I don't know what happens if I was to go 400,000 or 500,000 feet in the air. I don't care what people assume.
That's an argument from ignorance.
No, you're making a claim based on something that can't be verified.
It's celestial navigation.
Nathan, say it again, Nathan.
What, for the 8th time? So one of...
Well, no, don't say it for the 8th time. Can I... Look, the reason... Here's the problem. You responded with a red herring, WITSIT. Because what we do know, it's not about what we don't know. What we do know is that as high as we can go, and as high as it's been recorded, we rely on the fact that from a horizontal plane of reference, the stars are going to be at the same exact angle. You don't deny that. You're like, duh, we all know that. Great. So that specifically is why Nathan is saying, well, unlike things terrestrially, the stars don't behave that way. And when terrestrially, if you go high up, the angle to something terrestrially would change. That's not how the stars work. So that's what he's talking about. And you're refuting what he's saying with a red herring.
No, okay, but let me post something. Hold on, WITSIT, real quick. WITSIT, real quick. Let me post something, though, real quick. Let's say you're on the ground, you're at sea level, you're looking at the top of a mountain. It's miles high, right? And then you move your theodolite up 1/10 of a millimeter, are you going to notice an angle change? Does anyone know the answer to that question?
It's obviously no.
Yes.
Yes, you'll do.
Oh my god.
WITSIT says no. Everyone else says yes. What the hell?
Can I add something here that's the most important point? According to the globe, right, when it comes to, let's just say, Polaris, right, when you go south, when you're north of the equator and you go due south, Polaris appears to drop in the sky. When you go due north, Polaris appears to rise in the sky. And they claim it's because Earth curve is either getting in your way or getting out of your way. Now, if I'm at 45 degrees north latitude, I'll have a 45-degree angle. And the bowlers claim that it's because I have a 45 degrees being blocked by Earth curve. But if I'm in if there's someone that's in an airplane 6 miles above me, they also get 45 degrees. So where is Earth curve? Blocking their, blocking their view. That's the most important thing. We're arguing about something that we can't prove. You know what I mean?
Brother, I
That's the
agree with
point.
you. I agreed with the whole argument that Nathan had laid out. I almost jumped in with the people that were being semantic because it's obviously deviation from the horizontal baseline is a red herring. What I said wasn't, though, because someone said this made a definitive claim that the stars defy our understanding of geometry, and that is not something that we can say.
No, he didn't say that. He didn't say that.
He literally did.
said they don't obey our geometry.
Yeah, they don't. Like,
Okay.
I mean, that's a true statement. They don't.
Okay, so
because
if
they
I say
don't.
that they defy it, and
Yes,
you say
because
they
they don't.
obey it,
That's because they don't obey it.
Okay, but do you understand? Does everyone agree that if something was far enough away and the amount of distance you changed in relation to it was small enough?
Here we go, round and round and round we go.
Like,
They don't
why is it that you have to shut off the-
WITSIT. Regardless of
just
your red
so-
herring, regardless of the red herring we've dealt
It's
with.
not a red herring.
Do you mind?
No, I
Regardless
do
of the
mind
red
because I was in
herring
the
we
middle
have
of
dealt with
talking.
multiple times, yeah? The stars do not do that. Coming up with a hypothetical example where we do know the distance, and it's very far, like you've exampled about 6 times, is an argument from ignorance. We aren't going to a point where they do change, and every height we can go to, they don't change. So your argument's silly. Can you stop making it repeatedly, please?
Dude, you literally interrupted me, and then you said, "May I?" Like,
Come on,
you're
WITSIT.
delusional, dude.
The angle
Like,
is the same, WITSIT. Nothing to do with distance. It's
I
the angle. The angle.
agree that on a small scale close to the surface of the Earth, there's no detectable change that can be measured.
Why can't you just accept the fact that you're wrong?
Can you
What is
guys
it with
let
you?
WITSIT
You guys got
Neo.
much pride that
Come
you
on.
can't just say, you know what?
Nathan,
You're right.
Nathan, could you
They
unmute
don't
me? I don't
obey our
want to ever meet
geometry.
you.
It's because
No,
everybody... Okay, let me just
the
appeal
proper
to SE
critique-
for a
the
second.
proper
Everyone else
critique is
except
that
SE
he's-
for just a second. The problem, SE, is that he's never conceding, right? He's got it wrong multiple times. He never accepts that he's got anything wrong. But he will reassert that if we know the very far distance, then it's not reasonable to say that they don't obey our geometry. He said that about 9 times now. Now, that means that he's in no way acknowledging the facts that are on the table when those facts form a principle of navigation that would fall apart at the seams if what he postulates about them changing with height, because if they're very far and we know they are, we don't. This pie-in-the-sky speculation is getting irritating. That is why
That is a
Neil's
straw man.
yammering through the top
That
of
is a
him.
straw
No, it's not a straw man.
yes,
First
it
of
is.
all,
But you
it's
won't
what I
let me
wanted to
talk,
talk
though.
about the.
Just
It's
let him
about the
talk, guys,
mountain.
regardless of what you think. Why not just let him get his
I jumped
sentence
in.
out, and
I
then you
jumped
can
in before
say,
WITSIT though. I jumped in before WITSIT because I wanted to jump in
had
before
literally
Nathan.
been interrupted.
But I
for the
wanted to
5th time
jump
in a
in before
row.
Neil even.
Go
Before
ahead.
Neil even. So
okay, say your piece,
I
and
was
then
just
let WITSIT
gonna.
speak.
I will. I promise. All I wanted to point out was that it was an unnecessary addition that he would say that he would even imply a vague distance. Like there is no distance. It's just ambiguous. We're just talking about, well, due to the relative short distance on the Earth versus the stars, like we can make this argument that well, they're really far away, so it could be that it's not going to change it to a degree that we would see because we're not getting far enough. However, it obeys other geometric laws or whatever the case is. But again, that you can't justify that. That's a red herring, number one, from what Nathan was talking about. And number two, it's just what I wanted to talk about before I came onto the show, which is a Mott and Bailey fallacy, in which you agree to the things that we do know or can describe based on what we see, and we're going to argue for a premise that we can't actually uh, prove. And it's like, well, there is no distance.
Bro,
There's
this
no
is
reason to say, well, it could be so high that you wouldn't see a relative change. However, my argument is still the same. I mean, there's fallacy on top of fallacy, bro.
it literally is no fallacy. So this was a bunch of straw
Well
mans.
done, Eli.
Okay.
Hold on, acknowledge that.
Immediate.
That was well done, Eli.
Neo.
And that's exactly what he's doing. And I'm tired of it.
I'm not
Finish
saying
your sentence, guys. Please, come on.
my only point was because we don't know the distance, we can make no definitive geometric claims. If it's within the
Yeah, we can.
articulated, if it's
I'm leaving
dude,
this shit.
Yeah, he's just going to repeat the textbook argument from ignorance fallacy, because we can't travel into a sky vacuum. We can't say the sky vacuum's not real. Yeah, we can. It's an argument from ignorance fallacy
we
that
can
he's used
obviously
repeatedly.
make claims within an articulation of the data that we have access to, right? That's cool. That's cool. Whatever. No one's disputing that. You're making definitive claims about what the stars do or do not do, and then you're trying to flip it on me like I'm the one doing that. No, I'm not claiming they do or do not obey geometry. That's because I know if they're far enough away, in theory, you wouldn't really see a detectable change in the angle as you increase to the height of a plane. Okay? And if you want to deny that, you deny basic geometry. And so you can agree or disagree. It was just a point. And I also tried to make it very
thank you.
fruitful and productive to also bring up just the fact that we see
Can
them
I address that
change at a
point?
certain rate.
So just going to scattergun? No, it's called an argument from ignorance fallacy, based on the fact that I have actually looked at what they do and understand how they work and how they've saved lives at sea. I can unequivocally declare that they don't obey our geometric principles. They don't. Now, you might say, I'm quite happy to say I don't know that whether or not they could be shown to be able to defy them or not. Yeah, well, that's because you don't know WITSIT. That's what I've been trying to point out this entire show, that you don't know. And I do. And I'm telling you that they don't obey our principles of geometry. It's that simple.
Extrapolation fallacy.
They would still obey geometric principles if
Also,
they're
you
super
invented
far
a distance
away.
the gas would fill. Okay.
That's a fact. What I just said is a
This
fact.
far away distance would gas fill it. This far away distance would gas fill it.
Well, I'm not claiming what's in space or with the stars. What does that have to do with anything?
Yeah, do you claim ether?
You claim the distance. You claim the distance.
You guys don't want to debate me about
So
ether.
would
Let's be
gas
real.
fill this distance?
I don't know what's between us and the stars. I just answered that.
But if it's a vast distance, then gas would be filling it and we'd be dead, wouldn't we?
You claim the distance.
What? What if the stars are outside of containment?
Hold on, before we move on, WITSIT does have a valid point. If you're making a theodolite measurement to the top of a mountain that's miles high, and you move your theodolite up a tenth of a millimeter, I don't think you'd be able to detect any angular change. Now, maybe you would. Maybe if the mountain was a few miles higher, you wouldn't. I'm just saying the point's valid. To know that geometry doesn't apply to them is kind of.
Right, Jeremy, you saying I don't think you might or might not be able to... If you raise in altitude to a mountain, there is a change. That's a fact.
Yeah, but a tenth of a millimeter.
Yeah, that's a change.
A fraction of.
Yes, that's a change, isn't it?
I know, but
yes, that's a change.
Yeah,
would you be able to measure it?
Yes.
Would you now measure a different angle to the top of the mountain?
Yes, it would change slightly.
my point is, it would there's obviously some point that it would fall below your ability to measure it. Can everyone in the room just acknowledge that basic principle of
Shark
logic?
minutes, shark seconds.
I mean, it's just so simple.
Yeah, I don't know about the relationship.
I can easily accept that. Yeah, I can accept that if you're changing in height, that you'll get a change in angle to a mountain. Yeah, I can say that that's a perfectly acceptable statement. The stars don't do that, though.
No, what I said is, can we all agree that we have instruments that they measure to a specific sensitivity, right? And if the change fell below that sensitivity, you wouldn't be able to measure a difference, even though it did technically change.
So is that by your standard to suggest that the stars might then change?
Wait, why are you not answering my question?
I'm asking if the inference to your question is to suggest that the stars would ever change in angle when raising in altitude.
Oh, we're not inferring anything. We have to
Oh,
go
I
step
am.
by step. Clearly.
No, I am.
So you're
I'm not inferring. I'm telling you a fact.
So you're avoiding it in bad faith, is what?
No, I'm telling you a fact that the angle not changing, the fact that the stars do not obey principles of geometry and angles when measuring things and changing in height, means that you can get the world to be perfectly flat and have an almanac that works everywhere at all altitudes because of the majesty of the heavens and the fact that they don't change in angle when raising in altitude. The very same thing I stated originally. I had then 9 repetitions from you, WITSIT, of an argument from ignorance fallacy.
It's literally not. It's see if anyone in the room can be honest, right? So our instruments have a certain level of sensitivity that we can measure, right? And if the change to whatever we're measuring angle to is below that sensitivity, we're not going to be able to know it changed, even though technically, in actuality, it did change. I am not making any claims other than I am pushing back against your positive definitive claim. If you add the caveat of based on anything that we can do on the earth, as high as we can go and measure, it doesn't change, that's cool. But to make this like broad...
I did. I did.
After I jumped in to correct the other guy's statement, which was objectively wrong.
Okay, well, let's get to the nitty-gritty of how this is actually applied. So we're going to test WITSIT's understanding of how this is practically useful. What we're going to do with these angle measurements, how we're going to transpose our knowledge of 1 degree for every 1 degree giving us 60 nautical miles, how we're going to transfer that into a practical use when at sea.
Why are you moving the goalposts?
Because I want to know how much you understand about how useful the stars are. Because you have a very specific sky pedal, a grift with ether, and that's directly connected to the stuff in the sky. That's the stars. Now, when we're talking about the stars and the sky and ether, I want the audience to know that there are practical applications for what we can do with the stuff in the sky. Beyond peddling religious rhetoric about what we think it might be useful for in the future, free energy and such like, it does actually have practical uses. So I'm testing to see if you already know how useful it actually is by seeing if you know how to practically apply what we do with the angle measurements to those stars, how we'd use them.
You are moving the goalposts because you just got proven
asking
wrong.
If you know or not.
Move on.
Just asking if you know.
Well, I don't care to move on.
I'm asking if you know.
Faith, but
we can move on. If you just say, I don't know how to use them.
You're diverting away from the point you're supposed to be conceding.
I'm not supposed to be conceding anything. I'm asking you if you know how to use the stars or not.
I have a general knowledge of it, right?
Everyone else, shut up.
All you did was respond with 2 fallacies, and you're like, therefore, your claim is wrong, Nathan. When clearly, like, no, in reality, what we do know is that no matter what altitude you are, there's no change. We're only working with that bit of information, not more information that we aren't informed about. So your argument was an argument from ignorance. And you're saying, no, you have to accept that because of this possibility and this other digression, using a theodolite with a mountain, like if you changed it ever so slightly, would you be like, just to validate your argument from ignorance fallacy is ridiculous. To then say, well, now let's not move on. Let's just let you concede.
No, we are moving on. Hold on, let me just deal with Eli. Eli, we are now moving on. Now, hello, I'm trying to talk to Eli. We are now moving on, Eli. Now we're moving on. Now we've established that the angle's not going to change regardless of the red herring fallacy that was the argument from ignorance in respect to what mountains will do. We've firmly established, and everybody in the audience understands, that this principle used in navigation is that they do not change. They do not obey these laws that we understand when dealing with things like mountains, regardless of his protestations. Now that we understand that, and we've had to pull him through the hedge backwards so he understands it, and we can accept that fact, we're going to know with that understanding that they're not going to change in angle. It's not retarded to say that they don't obey our laws of geometry. Yeah. Now we're going to ask him, what do we do now? How can we use this knowledge that we've got? How are we going to practically apply it? Let's see how much sky knowledge that's practically useful WITSIT's got.
Okay, I'm actually going to first school Eli on the argument from ignorance fallacy. That's when you make a claim that something is true or false based on a lack of evidence. I did not make a claim. I said,
what, like the height?
I think
like the height we don't have, like that sort of argument. Like that sort of argument from ignorance fallacy, like the height that's very far that we don't know. That doesn't sound like a textbook argument from an ignorance fallacy to you, WITSIT, because it absolutely, I assure you, is.
I said I don't know the distance to the stars. You guys are getting this so funny. I didn't make a claim if anything was true or false. I actually made the point that we can't make claims like that about the stars because you guys are claiming to know that the stars do or do not obey certain laws of geometry.
Because we do know it, you stupid man. Now shut up. I'm sick of hearing him going round in circles with his demeaning, derogatory voice that's insulting. Yeah? Trying to talk to me like I'm retarded, with a retarded voice on. None of the moderators are going to call him out for it. Shout out to Uncle Ben for the super chat.
Interrupting him, Nathan. You keep interrupting him.
Interrupted him, Nathan. Are you serious?
While he puts on a little voice. Sorry, are any of you moderators going to stop him putting on the little voice? Is he being deeply clever while he yammers through me now? Because he's yammering through me objecting. He's using a derogatory and demeaning voice, and now he's rumpusing the hell out of me. Oh, I'm just on mute in the server. So they've just muted me in the server. So this is what we get. WITSIT's going to get to use some derogatory, demeaning voice, and when he does so and I object, that's the end of what I've got to say. I get muted in the server.
Okay, Oakley, I was trying to moderate
Nathan, I would
keep
like
everything cool.
this started out as a this started out as a reversal of the burden of proof. I pointed out that the stars do not obey geometry, which is not a positive claim. Now, if you want to prove that they do obey geometry, that's on you. That's a positive claim. So prove it.
I didn't claim that. So you guys are getting desperate. Like, okay, so I didn't claim that. You're going to censor me again, for sure. I did not claim they do or do not obey geometry. I made that very clear probably 20 times.
Not what you meant.
I said that in order to make the claim that they do or do not, you would have to know the distance, which we specifically don't know.
No, you said...
That's the argument.
Hold on, John. Just let Brian. Hold on.
That's the
Brian,
argument
go
from
ahead.
ignorance right there, bro. Like, I don't
Just let Brian.
I really don't get it.
You obviously don't know what argument from
Can we let
ignorance is.
Brian?
I just defined it for you.
Can we let Brian?
WITSIT, you said that if we could incrementally move a measuring device and the top of something not change in angle, then the same thing could happen with the stars if they're very far away. Show me that happening, what you just said, in a terrestrial fashion. Because you'd have to show and prove that in the first place to even make the postulation you're making. What we do know is that they don't do that. So you'd have to show the very thing that you're claiming to be a likely possibility, because that's all you've got to go on. So if you can't show that, and I know you can't, and you don't have an argument.
Okay, that's incorrect. I made a very simple statement of fact, which is that our instruments that we measure angles with have a certain level of sensitivity. And if the change in angle falls below that level of sensitivity, we would not be able to measure the change. That's a fact. That's a fact.
Which instrument has that?
All instruments in the world have a sensitivity.
Below a certain level of, you said you won't be able to measure the angle. We can always measure the angle as long as we can see the object.
Really? Can you measure
Yeah.
0.0000001 arc second? Can you send me that device,
Can you
please?
see
Because
the
you're
object?
a
Can you see
billionaire.
the object?
No, you can't. That's
Can you see the
below.
object?
I think that even Hubble, I think it's 0.00005 is the.
Yeah, and I mean,
That's
You
and
won't
Hubble.
be
Who knows
able
about
to
Hubble?
notice the change with your eyes at that point.
I'm just going over the claimed angular sensitivity at maximum that we currently profess to have. So no, to answer your question, yeah, there's a limit, right? But that you can name with a decimal point means that by virtue of you asking, there is a quantitative change by the virtue of the fact that you're even asking. If there's a number difference, then it's changed. If you're saying, well, that number difference is so small that we couldn't detect it, you're like, yeah, but it's still a change in angle, regardless of how small. Or you saying, well, but because our sensitivity is not high enough, we can't detect it. What, with the stars? No, there is no detectable change ever at any altitude. This is the point that for some reason we're going around it. I don't know why you've got a.
Yeah, well,
go on, Brian.
Please let me. I made the initial claim. Can I?
I'll be quick, John. The problem is when terrestrial objects appear to change in their apparent angular height, it's due to perspective, which is to do with the eyes, the human eyes, not the lens, not anything else. It's perspective. When the stars don't do that, it means they're not obeying perspective, which means they're not obeying the human eyes, which means they're not terrestrial, as we understand. It's that simple. Why are we arguing about this point?
I agree with that. That sounds like you guys should have never argued with my point because it's just a basic statement
Here
of
we go.
fact.
Now he agrees. When he gets proven wrong, he
I've
agrees.
said the same thing the whole time. He just slipped in the
You're
statement.
saying we're telling you
May
that
I please,
Neil, we don't need the color commentary. Go ahead,
Martin
John.
Bailey fallacy, by the way. Go ahead, Chief Shot.
Well, I would like to get in. I made the initial claim, and everybody's went to tell me I was wrong. Right? Why don't we just apply these geometric principles? We're talking about a triangle. Let's get the height of the star at 12 degrees above level. Why don't we do that if we can know the height of the star and it does obey geometry?
Well, the problem is you can't do triangles in geometry when you're dealing with apparent positions. And when you look at a star, I mean, I would make it a firm claim that that's not the actual position of the star.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean you can't deal with them with triangles. It just means that one of the sides of the triangle isn't calculable. So John's example is to say that if you've got a star and it's at 45 degrees, and you go, okay, fine, well, let's work out its height then. Yeah? Because we can work out the distance using celestial navigation. So why don't we just use trig and calculate for the height? So you do the maths and you get the height. And you go, oh, well, let's just double check it. 3 hours later. And what do you know? It's no longer at 45 degrees. Now it's at 20 degrees. Has it got the same height? Oh, well, no, now it calculates to have a completely different height, doesn't it? What about when it's at 1 degree above the horizon? Is it about to smash into the ground? What about when it touches the horizon? Is the star touching the ground? Of course it isn't. We're dealing with perspective. Where the star is representative of where it's above on the ground. And as time progresses and the star recedes towards the horizon, it's getting further and further away from your position. It's moving over a ground position that's further away. But that appears to you like it's receding towards the horizon. That's very much a function of perspective. Now, while that's very useful for us to map a always parallel to the ground position with its GP, so we can find our position, knowing where stars are above at given times. Very, very useful. But it means we cannot get the height.
Yeah, but perspective doesn't cause things to be out of their geometric position. Like if you're in the
Hold
middle
on, John.
of
Hold on. Try again, Jeremy.
Like if you're in the middle, like say you're standing in the middle of a railroad track, right? And you have a gun. Perspective's causing the railroad tracks to meet, but if you try to shoot at the rails, you're going to hit them because they're geometrically there. Like you can do geometry and stuff with that. Like the stars, the stars are not getting the actual position of them. The rail's not there. It's in some other position.
You don't want. That's not what you're. Thank you, Neil.
Not obeying geometry.
Yeah.
Not obeying geometry. I agree.
Thank you, Jeremy.
No, geometry is a fluid mechanism. We have Euclidean, non-Euclidean, variable changes. We have hyperbolic geometry. We have literally things that change from parabolic to hyperbolic to ecliptic to elliptical. Is what I meant. So like you can do tons of things with geometry. I don't dispute that we don't know what the stars are, that we don't know how vision works when it comes to the stars. I don't dispute that it's baffling. I wasn't trying to fight with you guys. Maybe I shouldn't have brought my point up while you were all heated talking to a glober. That wasn't my intention. I was simply stating, I think that you should maybe reconsider so definitively proclaiming the stars defy geometry, because maybe you mean Euclidean geometry. Okay, so like we don't know. We don't know what they do.
Demonstrate any other geometry in the real world. Yeah, demonstrate any other geometry in the real world.
Okay, no problem.
Exactly.
So when we have
there is
corpuscular and
only geometry. There is no non-Euclidean geometry or any of these other ones. These are mathematical. They have no relevance and relationship to our terrestrial world. There is only
We're talking about how we
Euclidean geometry. Euclidean geometry doesn't exist. There was only geometry and non-geometry. That's it.
But no, but in Euclidean geometry, parallel lines don't converge. But when we see things, they do.
But that's perspective.
Okay, but perspective still is described with geometry, right?
Sure, but
we're dealing with the measurement. But when we're dealing with an angular measurement, we're dealing with a perspective measurement most of the time. Maybe not all the time, but most of the time. If we're dealing with a distance between 2 points or a height above sea level or above something, that's a perspective measurement. But geometry itself is based around shapes. All of geometry must adhere to the number 9, which means every internal angle must add up and sum to 9. If it doesn't do that, it's not geometry. So this claim of non-Euclidean geometry, that's a load of nonsense, because and when they say spherical geometry, that's just geometry. There's no such thing as spherical geometry. It's just geometry, because the sphere is a geometric shape. Non-Euclidean geometry is a made-up thing that has no relevance in reality, and any other claim geometry that doesn't adhere to 9 and does not have a relevance to our reality is not geometry. It's mathematics, but it's not geometry.
Dude, geometry is mathematics. Okay, so geometry period is it's measurements of shapes.
Those other geometries can only be described as mathematics. They can't be described as geometry. That's the point. Geometry is mathematics, but those other ones can't be described as geometry.
Can you guys let like WITSIT get a sentence out? Maybe you don't realize you're doing it, right? But there's 3-4 of you, and every time WITSIT tries to get a word out, you guys clip them.
Well, olive branch to you here, Brian. Okay, I understand what you're saying, that in the real tangible world, this non-Euclidean geometry does not apply. And when it comes to actually measuring things or applying geometry to our physical measurements in the real world, Euclidean geometry is kind of like saying apparent horizon, because that's all there actually is tangibly. I agree. But I don't extend that understanding to how we see things. I think that we specifically see the world different than it is based on certain circumstances, okay? I think corpuscular and anti-corpuscular rays arcing over your head show that. I think many things show that. I think even just the fact that we have, parallel railroad tracks converging show that, because just saying it's perspective, that's my point, is that perspective changes it from our understanding of Euclidean geometry, okay? We don't have to open this up right now, but I was only making the point that, like, well, let's just be a little bit more tactical, because we may eventually find out that we can understand how we see things a bit better, and maybe there is some type of geometry.
Fallacy.
Well, I'm not going to go ahead and tell you that it's already been done with highly precise robotics.
Something else that does not obey geometry. Why does introducing something else that does not obey geometry, such as perspective, Why is that relevant to the statement that the stars do not obey geometry? Why would you introduce something else that does not obey geometry as a specific example to refute my position?
Well, now that you've redesigned,
Sorry, Jeremy. I don't know if you guys know, but while John's talking, you guys just keep clipping him. Try that again, John.
Done, my bad. I'm next.
Try that again, John.
Right. Why would you introduce something else that does not obey geometry?
Sorry, we missed the beginning again because Jeremy, at the start of your sentence, clipped you. Let's just try that one more time.
Introducing something else that does not obey geometry, such as perspective, still does not address the point that I made that this is not obeying our understanding of geometry. It's
we
it's
heard
non
that. Perspective does. I thought he was done, Oakley. He took a long pause. My bad.
He had one more word. The word was the conclusion, Jeremy, which is it's non sequitur. He just didn't get it. He didn't even on his third attempt. He didn't get to say it.
He paused for 5 seconds.
Yeah,
he didn't pause at all.
WITSIT.
Yeah, he
Can I
did.
ask WITSIT a question?
Why do you lie so much?
Hold on, man. Hold on,
Einstein
Brian.
can't
Hold
use-
on. He said something.
okay,
Can I
okay.
address the thing that he said, or no? Am I never going to get a chance to do that? He said perspective doesn't adhere to geometry. He said perspective doesn't follow geometry. It does. When I just went over that with you, Oakley. When you're on the railroad tracks and you're shooting at the rail, they're geometrically there.
What?
And they converge.
Yeah, they converge. It doesn't. There's no other geometric.
That's a defiance.
Yeah,
to say that they converge, Jeremy, that's a defiance of a geometric principle. Yeah, parallel lines.
Like he does.
It's my bad. Did I pause? Did I take a breath? No, I did not.
Yes, Nathan.
It was your own panel.
Yes.
I don't care who it is. I just want to get to the end of the sodding sentence. No. Principles that don't obey geometry. Parallel lines converging.
Yeah, but okay, I understand that parallel lines don't converge. But however, when we look at the parallel lines that do appear to be converging, they're actually there. That's their actual position.
Yeah, you're
Perspective
confusing.
doesn't knock things down.
Yeah, you're confusing physicality with geometry. Because it's physically there doesn't mean that it obeys the geometric principles of all parallel lines will never converge. But you're saying,
correct.
but when I look at the railway, it converges in the distance. Yeah, it's not obeying a geometric principle then, is it? That's the point that WITSIT was making.
Oakley is correct.
Yes, I'm still making the point. The point being that that's completely non sequitur because we're discussing how the stars don't obey geometric principles, and WITSIT's very combative about that. Now he's taken it to something else that doesn't obey geometric principles, rather than just conceding that the stars don't obey them. He's continually appealed to the future that we may find different, or that we haven't got strong enough tools to show that difference that could be there. That's all we've got so far. Non-stop red herrings. Now, it's never going to get conceded by WITSIT, because, I do agree with you, but we just haven't got strong enough instruments to show that there could be a difference in the future with a non-stop string of fallacies that he's used. Then he's gone to perspective.
Well, I think
now John is saying,
Dude, Jeremy,
why have you had to take it?
addressing me, and this is what happens. They both address me forever. And then I go to talk, I can't. And then they respond to the next person, talking about me the whole time. I can't. I'm not going to sit here and listen to you talk about me. Jesus, bro. I'm trying to be good faith. Try it out for once. You've now all changed the definition of geometry because you're God, and we must obey you. So since the only real geometry is Euclidean, now you won the argument. Well, what we know is that perspective is different. How do we try to describe perspective? With angles. That invokes geometry, but they don't obey Euclidean geometry. So what do? We make some new magical version of geometry, and we just call it perspective. Well, that's stupid. You're still using geometry. You're making angle measurements. You're therefore measuring shapes of some sort. It's actually optical visual space. That's a fact. So what we see is non-Euclidean geometry. If we're going to measure angles, we're using geometry. Therefore, if we are going to look at how we see the world and measure it with angles, we are using geometry. It doesn't adhere to Euclidean geometry, so I agree. It is different, which means we see the world differently than we tangibly, physically measure it. That is the point.
Yep.
Changing the definition and saying I'm wrong and I need to concede is so sleight of hand and bad faith, it's weird. Okay? So, like, we can agree that
No,
in
because
your
when you jumped
definition
in,
of
when you jumped
geometry,
into the
you're right.
argument, when you jumped into the argument was against kind of the argumentation that Jeremy was putting out. Is that no, it doesn't relate in that way. Your interruption was a complete red herring, and all of this is for no reason.
Dude, he said that way after I jumped in. What are you
Okay, well, I'll
talking
conclude
about?
anyway. So the principle isn't using like standard trig or any of the Earth-based navigational methods that we would use if we had known heights of things like lighthouses, because you can still navigate using those. But you use those in a terrestrial manner as opposed to a celestial manner. The process for using it and measuring it is celestial navigation, often confused with just straight up trig, and it isn't. So when people ask us to give us the height of a star, when we're not even claiming that there should be one, and they, the ballers, do claim that there is a height, that is then immediately violated when they try to infer centre of sphere measurements off a flat plane, because then they've got infinite distances to their stars in a heliocentric model. Now, for us, it's irrelevant. We don't need the height. The process doesn't call for it, doesn't require it, and the very basis of the method, that's celestial navigation, works on the understanding that there's no elevation changes to deal with. Why? Because it doesn't matter if you're on the ground, on Everest, or at 50,000 feet in the air, the angle's always the same to the star. That's it.
So you see, we agree.
If you look
We
at
agree, and this, real fast, a cherry on top is that the globe actually assumes that we do see in Euclidean geometry. Handwave dismisses the fact that perspective is different and then draws infinitely extended lines to infinitely far away stars, and then they just map out a made-up globe based on how we see. And they claim that actually the Earth is curving, and you need spherical trig and geometry there, and that we see in perfectly infinite long straight lines. Okay? So, like, both our arguments work together. They both refute the globe.
Hold on a second. That's not quite true.
Ryan.
Hold on.
No.
Hold on, Brian. Just let me make a small correction. You're under the apprehension that they make these measurements for the globe, but they don't. All of the measurements start off on the equatorial plane. So the first step of any of this description for a globe ever is going to start with the angle measurements off a flat Earth to describe with respect to the equatorial plane. That's called the celestial sphere. Now, the celestial sphere is just a North Pole centric map of the stars over a flat plane. Well, with all of those angles to all of those stars, you can start plotting them out and deriving various values, one of which can be your radial value. You can plot that by taking the minimum elevation angle measurement to Polaris. So at the point that it's inferred on their latitude grid to reach zero, that's what they call the equator. So it's not exactly a back engineering, it's a prerequisite requirement that their edge of a sphere value, where Polaris starts to disappear, must match up with the minimum flat Earth angle measurement to Polaris, because that's how it's actually used. So for every single claim to be sphere-proof ever, their starting point, the genesis of that claim for a globe, is with the equatorial plane and the celestial sphere over it. That's why when back engineering tangent point horizons or at your feet out to a GP in space, at some stage they have to transpose down that angle they couldn't acquire from the surface because it's curved into the middle of the globe, effectively making the globe nothing more than a glorified protractor sat on the top of a flat plane with the dome of the heavens wrapped around that. So the equatorial plane is your flat Earth map. That's what it is. That's where their globe comes from. So to infer that that's wrong would be to say that every single globe measurement, claim, and inference of orbit that comes thereafter is also wrong, because that's where they came from. The world's been measured flat and turned spherical from angle measurements to stars. That's why I'm giving you such a hard time over this, if I'm honest, WITSIT. I want you to understand it implicitly, because it's important. It's the genesis of the globe measurements. They don't come from anything spherical. They come from a flat plane. It's called the equatorial plane. And without it, you don't have a globe.
So we completely agree on all that. Okay, let me say one thing. We completely agree on all that. And then the difference here is what you guys are calling celestial geometry, I think someone said, right? I'm just calling non-Euclidean. Okay, but we agree on the whole thing. They went out on a flat Earth like they always do, and then they made flat Earth measurements, and then they made up assumptions about how we see stuff in the sky, how far away they can pretend they are, and they started making the globe. Then they run around.
No, they didn't. They didn't. They just measured the angles and got the positional data. So the positional data, which is what goes into the, what is it called, the ephemeris? Is that the original one? Adam would know better. I'll probably pipe up. But
yeah,
right. So you've got all of the tracked data of where these stars are above at what time. So tonight, go outside, look directly above your head, and pretend there's a star at your zenith. Well, you are at that star's GP at that time. So if you write down, right, it's now 8:34 p.m. and X star, whatever it is, sigma 2574, is at my zenith. And you can note that that is its position. And you can track that indefinitely. Where's it above in 20 minutes? Where's it above in an hour? Where's it above in 4 hours? And you can write it all down in a nice big book. That's where it all starts. That's where the globe begins. Writing down
I agree.
relationships of stars over a flat Earth. Then that goes into a book, and it all develops from there. Like I say, from those measurements, you can go to radial value. So that's you started talking about orbits. Well, where do orbits come from? Well, orbits come from the extrapolation of R, either through Al-Biruni or with the use of the ephemeris and the flat plane, the equatorial plane. That's minimum elevation to Polaris. Flat Earth angle. That gives you your R value. Then R can be inserted into the orbital mechanics given you by Kepler and Huygens. So then you've got a scaling value with the transit of Venus, because you've already got distance, but no, you've already got scale, but no distance. So once you insert R into Venus's value, you can scale and distance the whole thing based on the starting point of a flat Earth angle measurement to Polaris to give you a radial value to turn Earth into a sphere, to put Earth around the Sun in an orbital motion, and have Venus, when transiting the Sun, give you a scale value for Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion. That's the full journey from flat Earth measurement to Keplerian reification of orbit. Or to put it shortly, orbit requires measurements of a flat Earth.
I agree with all that. I don't think I said orbit, but I agree with all that. All I'm making the point is, like, if you go out, you take your zenith, you're going to get your azimuth, you're going to take elevation angle measurements all the way up, right? And you're going to get a dome around you. They say they took the flat Earth measurements with your little azimuthal grid, and then they said, okay, actually, we're going to put the stars infinitely far away, draw straight lines all the way out to them infinitely, and we're going to hijack these measurements and flip them into the interior radius value of a sphere, just like you explained in detail. And then they're going to turn around now in 2024 and say, look, the globe model matches the sky, ha ha ha, when it was literally, they hijacked perspective and the sky to make it.
Yeah,
the part that I'm saying is, yeah, you guys are saying like celestial geometry or something, right? And
Celestial,
I'm saying,
just get the term right. So it's celestial navigation is the name of the mathematics and the process. So it's not named geometric anything. It's celestial navigation.
Well, someone said terrestrial geometry and celestial geometry, as if like what's in the sky doesn't adhere to our terrestrial geometry.
Terrestrial navigation and celestial navigation. So terrestrial navigation could be the same exact process in a first glance, but you're not. You can use real trig if you've got a lighthouse that you're sighting and you're measuring the angle to, because you know where the lighthouse is on the map. Obviously, it's on the map, and you know how high the lighthouse is, so you can use it to triangulate your position with standard trig. But that's terrestrial-based navigation. When you're using the stars, there's one very, very specific detail, don't get triggered, that you must understand when distinguishing between the two. And that is that the height of the stars bears no influence on the angle to the measurement of the star. That is to say, you measure it in a dinghy, you get 45 degrees. Now, by coincidence, there's a helicopter above you at 50,000 feet with a sextant, and he measures the same star at the same time as you do. He also gets 45 degrees. So you can both have the same almanac. The world is treated as a perfectly flat Earth in terms of navigation and mapping.
Yeah, but it's not perfectly flat. There's topography. That's your reification fallacy. But let me just say something about the railroad tracks and that thing you just said was using straight trig on Earth. If you go far enough away from a building and you try to do straight trig on that, you'll have the 10th floor be at your level, your horizontal, when you're like 6 feet above the ground or something.
Yeah,
you can't do straight trig on that.
Then you obviously can't do it. There's only certain buildings that are going to be useful in that respect for navigation. Buildings that you know their position and known height. Things like lighthouses are often used for that.
Right, and with when you're talking about the terrestrial navigation one, when you talk about how much resolution loss you will have, there's a function. They call it the Earth curve calculator, but it's actually a resolution loss between differential and planes. So they can apply that to get their fix terrestrially. But it's still, like you pointed out, that's still not obeying the basic understanding of the study of shape, which is what geometry is.
The point I was making earlier.
Hold on,
yeah, your TV's
Jeremy
mad loud,
replied.
John. Can you
start again, Jeremy?
John, can you turn your TV down? John, can you turn your TV down? It's a little louder, whatever that was. At the point I was making with the railroad tracks is, however we see, whatever geometry we see and whatever, those railroad tracks, they're in their geometric position, right? Whereas when you're looking at that lighthouse
position, geographic position. Something. I'm just saying.
What's the difference?
Well, it's the point on the ground, and the angles therein versus just perspective.
Yeah, and they're in their geometric position in 3D space, right? If I make a straight line to it, they're there.
Geographic location. I just told you. Just asked me the difference, and I just told you.
What he's trying to explain to Jeremy is
on the ground.
The distinction comes because with the GP of the star, right? If you're up in the example I gave earlier in the helicopter, right, and you're using a bubble sextant to make the horizontal at 50,000 feet, well, where the star's GP is, where it meets at 90, is 90 degrees to you in the helicopter. Yeah, you with me so far?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay, but you're 50,000 feet in the air. So, well, how is that useful? Well, because all horizontals are parallel with each other. Therefore, if it's 90 degrees to you in the helicopter, it's exactly the same position directly below that position on the ground. So it's 90 degrees along the ground as well. Both positions run parallel. So it doesn't matter because all horizontals run parallel. Now, to understand that principle is to defy the view that you get, because you're saying they converge. Yeah, that's how our eyes would work. But for this principle to work, all horizontals must run parallel. And because the stars aren't changing with height, that principle can still hold true for you at 50,000 feet or at 0. They still run 90 degrees to your position and, most importantly, parallel to the ground. Therefore, if you've got topology on the ground in the way makes no difference, because it still runs 90 degrees down to the ground, even if the ground is 2 inches above that point, because you happen to be where a 50,000 foot mountain is. You know what I mean? But in the example, so long as it works, it doesn't matter if 90 degrees below the star is the top of the point of the mountain, or if you measure it half an hour later and it happens to be at the bottom of a valley that's below sea level. It wouldn't matter, because all of the lines run parallel, making it inconsequential. But that only works because we know that the angle will not change at any height. Thanks to the majesty of how the stars behave, we can use this as a principle to navigate with. But for the fact that they don't obey how normal things behave as we raise and lower in height, this would never work. We'd never have found our way around the world. Thank God the stars do behave the way they do and defy the principles that we understand geometrically. Because if they didn't, we'd never have found our way around.
Well, they may, or they, I don't think they do personally, but okay, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, the most important part of all this, we're going around arguing about this thing, this part, this thing. Most important part is this: the origins of what? The origins of the globe. That's what we're fighting against, right? The globe. The origins of the globe start with flat Earth elevation angle measurements to Polaris. It's an angle, when you're getting your latitude, it's an angle between the visible sea horizon and Polaris. The only corrections that are made are for your height of eye, which is the height of the observer's eye above the water underneath the boat, and any celestial refraction that they need to add in, right? So other than those two things, there's no change. In other words, nothing is changing with the horizon. There's no correction for the horizon. If you're dealing with Polaris or any of the other navigational stars, you never change the horizon. The horizon is just the horizon, right? Now, what they claim is that the horizon is a consistently refracted position, right, in our opposition. So that's why they're always claiming that within their paradigm that there's an adding of a 7 and often mostly greater than 7 over 6 or being added in, which is changing the position of the horizon. Because they claim, remember, that the horizon is not the geometric edge of their globe. They're claiming that their geometric globe edge, what they would call it incorrectly, their geometric horizon, is below visible sea level. Because they're telling us that when we're looking at the horizon, that's just a refracted position, refracted off of a physical geometric globe surface. But we are getting our actual correct latitude with that visible sea horizon at sea, right? We're not changing that. We're not making any corrections for the horizon. We're literally using the visible sea horizon and with Polaris, with a marine sextant. And as I said, the only thing we're changing is the only corrections we're making is for a height of eye, and for which is only based off of measurement of the height of the observer's eye with the water underneath that boat. Right? That, and 1 second, Leroy, I'm not finished. Right? You're coming in at the crescendo. Right? And the any celestial refraction that needs to be dealt with. Right? That means that the horizon we're getting our correct latitude off of has to be the actual physical surface of the Earth. That means what they're calling a refracted position, right? They're saying that what they call a refracted position, we're getting a correct latitude off of. You can't get your correct latitude off of a refracted position. It proves that the horizon is the physical, tangible surface of the Earth. It proves the Earth is not a globe. Because they can't, for them to be getting their correct latitude between the horizon and Polaris, they would have to know where the horizon, their own geometric horizon is, and have special corrections added into the almanac when you're dealing with Polaris. There's no special corrections. There's no change ever, no difference. The horizon we see, the visible sea horizon, is the horizon we get a correct latitude from. We don't make any corrections for that. There's no mathematical corrections for that horizon, right? Because that is the surface of the Earth.
Yep, those are the positions.
It's not some refracted heap of nonsense that they like to claim. It is the surface of a flat plane.
Yeah, the positions on the ground. That's what you're measuring with respect to, so you can find them useful for navigation. But with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, likes, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. Of course, a massive thank you to Earth Awakenings for having us today in their Discord, and my G Plus panel for making today's live show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!